Another thing I can do is add transitions. If you look over here, we've got this little icon. If I click on it, I have a very limited set of transitions that I can use, but they are there to use and they work through a drag and drop method. So if I want to do a fade, I literally drag the icon to the beginning or the end of the clip and it will fade. And I can just click to lose that window here, and let's see what happens here when I hit play. Now the fade seems to have gone a little bit past, so I will drag this further to create a smoother fade, if you will. There we go. I can also adjust that fade by right-clicking, or on the Mac, control-clicking it, and I can even change the type of transition that it is, as well as the duration. If I want it shorter, I can do that as well. And I can actually delete it here also. And I'll just click over here to get rid of that window. I just basically shortened that fade. Now I can also delete the fade by highlighting it and hitting my delete key. And I can do that with tracks as well. I could highlight a track and hit delete, and boom, there it's gone. I will undo that. But basically transitions are quite simple. You just call up the transition and you drag it to the clip that you want to apply it to. So I've done a fade with white, and I could put that at the beginning of all of these, and it's kind of a funky editing method, if you will, but I'll just play back from the beginning.
Yes.
And it kind of does that little snap from white into the next edit. Okay, so those are transitions created by dragging and dropping. Now another thing we can do with our clips is we can split them. That is to say, chop them up into pieces. All I need to do is highlight the clip I want to cut, put the playhead at the point that I want to have it cut, and if you look over here, we've got a little pair of scissors. We just need to click on that, and you notice that it made an incision there. And I could chop this up, to whatever reasonable limit that the footage will allow me to do. Once that's done, I can actually highlight it and move it around and do anything I want as if it was a unique separate clip. I could drag it to other tracks and so on. Now the next thing I want to do is introduce you to putting graphics in your video and then taking that a step further and animating those graphics. So let me go up to the top layer here and then generate a new layer directly above that. I'll actually name this layer title bar. And I'm going to use my marquee tool to establish a rectangular area as a nameplate. And using my gradient tool, I will create a gradated nameplate, if you will. Let me just pick a color here. Maybe we'll go with something a little bit brighter, so a dark red, and go to my gradient tool. Make sure it's on foreground to transparent. And I'll start the ramp about 40% of the way in from the right. Shift key down and just drag it. I don't want it to go to pure transparent, so I'll drag a bit past the box. But you can see here that there is some translucency happening on the left side. I can just deselect, Command D, to start that. So you see I have one graphic layer right now. And you see it also represented inside of the timeline. I'm going to create a text layer on top of this, add a little drop shadow to it, and then show you how we can animate the group. In other words, the two different layers. What I will do, I'll tell you that right now, is I'll grab those two layers, highlight them, and turn them into a smart object. But let me start by creating some text, and I guess I'll just make it white. I'll just type over here. Let my type tool initialize. Alright, just type in the middle. I'm going to center this text, so I'll choose centering. And I can see that I'm on impact at 26 points. We'll see how that works out. And I'll just type in full name. So this should be your full name. I'll say full name here. There we go. Now I want to add a drop shadow to that. I'll just go to my move tool here. I'll actually just tweak the positioning of that a bit. And then with that layer highlighted, I can go to my Effects menu and choose Drop Shadow. And just make the changes that I want to the shadow. And I'm good with that. And there we go. So my next objective is to take these two layers and animate them flying in from the right, or rather from the left, pausing for a short time, and then flying out through the top. But I want to merge them together, if you will. However, I do want to be able to rather edit them if I decide to do so at a later date. So what I need to do for that is go over to my layers, with my Shift key down, highlight the two layers together, then right click on that text layer and choose Convert to Smart Object. What it does is it merges the two as one, but here's the cool thing. If I double click on that layer, it opens it up as if it was a separate new file, and it could conceivably go in and make changes to the text, especially in this case, but make any changes to any elements within that smart object. In other words, it's like nesting a movie within the movie. Let me just close this now and go back to my original file. So how do I animate this? If you'll notice, in the timeline, there's another little area that we can pull down and see specifics. Depending on the type of object that's on that layer, for example, if I open these two, you'll see some variations on the properties that I can manipulate. These are mostly meant for doing animations. And let me just close this one, and what I will do is I'll demonstrate how to animate this nameplate, if you will. In this case, I want to move its position, which would apply to the transform category. So first thing I do is put my playhead at the beginning where I want to start my first keyframe. I establish a keyframe by clicking on the little stopwatch. And you notice it generates a little diamond shape. I'm going to establish another keyframe just down the road here a little bit by moving my playhead and again hitting the little diamond. I will add some more later, but let me go back to that first keyframe. And the way we move from keyframe to keyframe are these little arrows on either side of the keyframe icon. So if I click this arrow, I'm back at keyframe 1. Now I'm actually going to grab this element with my move tool. I'll hold my Shift key down, but I'm going to drag it right off the stage. And if I move my playhead, you'll see that I've created an animation with that appearing. And then it stays still. So I'm going to move my playhead along the way here, along the way. Intent is to keep it on screen for this duration of time. Add another keyframe. Now here's another cool feature. I'm going to move it a little ways down again. If I make a change to that layer, Photoshop will automatically generate a keyframe. I could go in and manually add one, but I'll just demonstrate here. I'm going to move this upwards and out of the scene. And once I let go, boom, it generated a keyframe on my behalf. So if I drag my playhead back now, hit play, it will be a little slower this time because it's rendering at the same time, but if I hit play,